and welcome to the latest in our series of short films unpacking Patton's 7 elements of negotiation. And the element we're looking at in this brief video is communication. Now, communication really is the one element that underpins and runs like a seam through everything else to do with negotiation. From the literature, Fisher and others say without communication there simply is no negotiation. Barkay says communication is at the heart of negotiation and mediation, facilitated negotiation. And Blake and others say effective communication is central to effective negotiation. So it really cannot be overstated the importance of communication. For that reason, we'll be taking a more detailed look at communication later on in the module. For now, however, we will just be taking a very brief overview, getting us thinking about communication and some of the issues around it in a negotiation context. Let's start off with a rather wry quote from George Bernard Shaw. The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. And this really is the idea that if I say it, then it must have been understood, which is a very naive, erroneous conclusion that many of us make simply by sending that email, simply by making that statement. We assume that it must have been heard or read, and also that it has been effectively understood. And it's perhaps forgivable that we think about the broadcast element of communication rather than the receiving element of communication, because in our culture, we look with admiration onto those who are good at crafting a message. We think of them as great communicators, whether that's in the political context of people like Barack Obama or in the profession of something like advertising, which is about persuasively crafting a message that is intended to be heard, read, understood by millions, but the emphasis is very much on the message, and that's where the professional discipline lies. And even in our own lives, in a social and domestic setting, how often have you been in such a setting where you're enjoying the company, you're enjoying the conversation so much that you realise you've actually stopped listening to what's being said around you because you're thinking ahead to when they maybe stop talking and you get the chance to share the exciting story or the witty anecdote that you're now rehearsing in your head. In other words, we focus on the broadcasting element of it, the talking of it. What we don't think about in communication is the crucial aspect of listening. And in effective negotiation, you need to listen in order to understand. Issues then around communication and negotiation. Fisher, Ury and Patton say, whatever you say, you should expect that the other side will almost always hear something different. Now, we cannot forget that people in a negotiation are at least in a situation of difference, if not in a situation of conflict or dispute, that puts us under pressure. That means we're under cognitive and emotional and psychological pressures, and so rarely are we at our best, and rarely will we be able to receive messages and clearly think and understand the way ideally we might want to. But there are other issues around communication in negotiation. The other party may simply be grandstanding. They might be showing off, either to attempt to browbeat us or to impress perhaps the client that's instructed them. If you think about agents who are instructed by clients to take forward a case or to deliver a message, they might be speaking just for the sake of loving the sound of their own voice rather than trying to effectively understand or be understood, and more importantly to understand what the other party's perspective is on the matter too. You might not be heard. There could be any number of barriers to communication, from the technological and the physical, such as background noise, such as communication failures, through to the psychological and the emotional. As I say, people in negotiation often are under some sort of pressure that can reduce our simple cognitive ability to understand what is being said to us. Or you might actually be heard, but you might be misunderstood. Think of misinterpreted emails that many of us have written that were read in a way that we did not intend when we composed and sent the email. But think about cross-cultural communication as well, the potential for misinterpretation of specific words, for literal mistranslation, and the various wrong conclusions, erroneous conclusions that can be drawn as a result of these pitfalls in communication. Some of the aspects of effective communication that we will look at in a lot more detail later on are things like active listening. Now, active listening isn't just about paying attention, it's also about communicating back the fact that you have paid attention, that you have understood. And we do that through a number of subsidiary aspects of active listening, such as reframing messages from the words of the person that's been speaking to us into words that retain the core message but put it in different terms. And that's what paraphrasing and summarising are all about as well. Not only is it checking the understanding that we have heard and understood what's been said to us, but we are then sending a message through the act of summarising, of paraphrasing, of reframing. We're sending a message to the other party that we have actually been paying attention to them, and that's a very validating message to send. But how do we get them talking in the first place? Well, the crucial aspect of that is effective questioning. If you think back to one of the other elements when we talked about interests in negotiation, interests are not articulated at the starting point. And through effective questioning, this is how we explore and unearth and bring to the surface the interests of the other party, the underlying motivations, wants, needs and desires of the other party, so that we can understand what is it they really want out of the negotiation. How do we get that information? One of the ways of doing that is through effective questioning, and we will look at that later on in the module. Just to finish with a couple of brief quotes then, there are two elements to effective negotiation. Yes, it is about the clear communication of your message, and Blake and others say the way you present your case is likely to have a major impact on the outcome. A mediocre case will often get a better outcome if it is presented confidently and coherently, harking back to some of Howard Raifa's ideas about the art of negotiation and about how the interpersonal skills are an aspect of that. So definitely put your own case in the best possible way. But the other crucial aspect is, of course, understanding their case well. And we'll finish with a quote from Fisher and Ury and Patton again. Many consider it a good tactic not to give the other side's case too much attention and not to admit any legitimacy in their point of view. A good negotiator does just the reverse. And key to that is actually being able not just to broadcast, to speak, to send out your message, but actually to be able to listen and understand the message of the other party across the negotiating table from you.